Hello there, and welcome back to the Disc Connected. I'm here with legendary animator Bill Plympton. Bill, thank you so much for doing this today.
Hello. Hi. How is everybody today?
I'm sure that they are well because we were all just graced with this wonderful new release of the
Yes.
tune from Death Crocodile.
And it's been totally remastered by the Academy. So they did a great job. It looks so beautiful. It was just gorgeous.
I got to admit, I've watched it twice since it came out, which is crazy because it literally just came out. And
Yeah.
it looks so much better than you could imagine something like this could possibly look more than 30 years later on such a unique style of animation. I imagine you're very proud of the way that it was restored.
Yeah. Well, one of the interesting things about it is that, and I didn't know it at the time when well, let me go back and start from the beginning.
Sure.
I started doing animation when I was a lot older. I think it's 40 when I did Your Face. And that was a huge hit. And then I went on to, I quit my print illustration jobs and went on to do more shorts. 25 Ways to Quit Smoking, How to Kiss, One of Those Days, Plympton, a whole bunch of commercials and stuff. And I put it in a video cassette. And when I looked at it all together, it was an hour of animation. I went, wow, I've done a feature film in the last few years. And then the thought occurred to me, why not do a feature film? Because that was my goal when I was younger. I saw Sleeping Beauty and I said, oh man, I would give anything just to do some of the drawings on Sleeping Beauty. You know, I really love animated feature films. And for me to come to the realization that, hey, why not do the whole film? I thought that was wonderful. So I talked to Maureen McKelleran, who was my musician. We played bars and clubs around New York. I did pedal steel, and she sang and played guitar. And I said, let's do an animated feature film along the lines of Yellow Submarine, which is one of my favorite all-time films, but using American music, American roots music, you know, surfing, country western, rockabilly, jazz, you know, all sorts of styles of music. And she said, yeah, let's do it. We tried to sell it. Even though I was nominated for an Oscar, nobody wanted to buy it because it was kind of an adult film. And a lot of distributors, you know, are afraid of adult animation. So I said, we'll do it ourselves. And I financed it because at that point I was making money doing commercials. Your Face was such a hit, such a big hit, that I was picked as an animator for a bunch of commercials, big time commercials. So I had money. So for about a year and a half, I financed my film, and it came out. And little did I realize that this was the first time anybody had ever hand-drawn their own animated feature film.
Wow.
And what happened was then the whole digital explosion was kicking in, and people realized they don't need to hire a cameraman or go to a Kodak and buy film or get the film processed and all that garbage. They can just do it at home on their laptop. And for now, I see all these people making their own animated feature films, and they say, yeah, Bill Plympton did it. Why can't we do it? And so I kind of started in my mind, I kind of started a revolution in animation that people on their own, DIY, make their own animated feature films. And I think that's fantastic because there are some great films out there with people doing it themselves. And I'm happy to say, and proud to say that the tune kicked off this revolution that's going on now.
Well, I mean, one of the things that I did want to get into is the fact that it is so difficult to get distribution for so many things.
Yep.
And you've, not to, worship at the feet of Bill Plympton, but you've made yourself this subset of things that are even harder to get distribution for. Animation, animation is already difficult. Adult animation is even further difficult.
Even harder,
and then shorts are even difficult beyond that, which is where a lot of the success has come from. So as somebody that made such an impact, one of the things I'd really love to hear about is that first Oscar nomination. How'd that feel? How'd that affect you?
Well, the weird thing is I never entered it in the Oscars. I think it was with either the Spike and Mike show or the Tourney of Animation, and they entered it in the Oscars. And I got a phone call from this guy from the Canadian Film Board one morning saying, "Is this Bill Plympton?" I said, "Yeah." "Did you know you got nominated for an Oscar this morning?" I said, "What? Are you kidding me?" And I had to call somebody else to confirm that this wasn't a prankster. And sure enough, I did get nominated. And it really did change my life completely. I mean, for my first animated film to be that successful, it's very rare. A lot of it had to do with I was 40 and I had experience doing comic strips, and I knew how to, make people laugh with my drawings. That helped a lot. But still, for my first film to be that successful was really, really amazing to me. And going there to the Oscars was incredible, meeting all these people, and it was just changed my life completely.
I spent an evening this week with this brand new disc of the tune, watched all of it, which is a wonderful release. We've got a bunch of the shorts on here. We've got an hour-long interview with you and some of your collaborators from the tune. We've got new audio commentary. We've got an essay by Walt Cha, who's a wonderful film critic. But I was astonished because my wife had never seen anything from Plympton, and I loved sharing it with her. And what's funny is everything still works. Something about this animation is timeless. So timeless.
Yeah. And animation is like that. And I did it purposely. I didn't want to bring in any Reagan jokes or, contemporary humor. I just want it to be like a universal story. Can I tell you one story?
By all means, yeah.
You were talking about getting distribution for animation, and not only is it independent animation, but it is for adults. It's not for kids. And I was at Sundance for, I believe it was around 2000, something like that, with my film, I Married a Strange Person. Maybe it was earlier, like 1999. And the audience loved the film. It's probably my most bizarre film. It's a really crazy film. But nobody was picking it up. Nobody was buying this film. And this was the film I did after the tune. And I was very frustrated. And then I was on the the bus of Sundance that goes around and drops people off at all the movie theaters. And I saw the head of Lionsgate Films there. And I said, "Oh, I know that guy. I met him once." So I walk up to him and say, "Hello." I think his name was Tom. And I said, "I'm Bill Plympton. I have a new film here at Sundance. It's called I Married a Strange Person. You got to see it. It's really, people are loving it." He said, "Well, I'd love to see it, but I got a stack of films, this high to watch. I'm really busy. I just don't have time to see another film." So I was really frustrated and pissed off. And then the doors to the bus opened. And this young guy, 20 years old, jumps on the bus, and he's got that little knit cap, with snow coming down the side, and he had a snowboard, and he'd just come down the hill, and he was covered in snow. And as he gets on, he says, "Dude, you're Bill Plympton." I said, "Yeah." He said, "You made I Married a Strange Person. That rocked my world, dude. You are God." And then he jumps off the bus and heads on down the hill on the snowboard. And that was it. And I didn't know what to do. And so the guy from Lionsgate says, "Well, I guess I better look at this film." And he looked at it and he bought it for a lot of money. And I even get royalty checks from that. And that is rare. It's really rare when you get royalty checks from a big studio, especially when you're a small guy like me. Right. I'm not Brad Pitt or anything like that. So it was, and that's the business. That's how it works. The weirdest connections can change your career, you know. And that kid, I don't know who he is. I should have paid him for that.
He should get royalties.
Yeah, he should get royalties.
Yeah, that's the business. You got to be on a bus and hope that this random skier gets on with you.
Dripping water and snow all over all of us, you know. That's the way. Anyway, that was my distribution story.
I love that. And one of the things that has to, you know, for a certain generation, be the, you know, some of the fine, you know, references for Plympton that they have is you were kind of everywhere for a little while. That you were, you know, working with certain people that were perfect for my demographic. So I got to ask about a handful of these, like MTV's Liquid Television. How was working with them back in the day?
Yeah, they saw my film Your Face at Annecy, I think. And they kept going to Annecy. Annecy is this animation festival in France where it's purely animation. It's like the Cannes Film Festival of animation. And so they contacted me. They were there, and they you know, invited me out to dinner and said, we want to show your film on MTV. And it was a big success with the channel. And then I did 25 Ways to Quit Smoking, which was really big success on MTV, because it not only was it funny and animated, but it had a real point to it. You know, I stopped smoking. And so MTV loved that. And then I showed How to Kiss, and I think Plympton, and One of Those Days. So my stuff was all over MTV, but they never gave me a credit.
Which makes no sense. I don't get it. They
cut off the credits whenever the end of the film came. They cut it off. And, you know, I didn't mind. I was so happy to be on MTV because at that point, MTV was hot. I mean, everybody was watching MTV, and I did too. I love watching that channel. And I ran into some people later on, and and I told them about my stuff on MTV, and says, "That was you? We didn't know your name. We just said, oh, it's the color pencil guy." I was the color pencil guy that they watched, and apparently I had a big following as a color pencil guy on MTV. So MTV was very important to my early start in animation.
Well, now that you brought that up, I'll hold on the other collaborators that I want to bring up. But one of the things that is so important for you and your style is that individual, almost like very textured look. It's something that no one else has. And as somebody that, you know, as you can see behind me, I love tangible things. I love physical media. I love that this can never be taken away from me now.
Good for you. Me too.
That your animation has meant a lot because it feels like that. And when you watch, not that the Disney animated stuff is bad or anything. Some of those are my favorite, but something about everything from Bill Plympton has always been special because it's like I can reach out and feel the shavings of the colored pencils.
Well, it's handmade,
right?
And there are a lot of mistakes in there, and I happen to like the mistakes. It gives it a fresh feel, like it was created by hand, and I think that's why my stuff stands out. And you know, it's interesting. Everybody says as soon as they see the work, they say, "Oh, it's Plympton." I'm identified with that real kind of crude look of my animation. And it's funny because I was influenced by a lot of people, you know, certainly Disney at the beginning, then Tex Avery and Bob Clampett, Winsor McKay, and then some of the current animators like Marv Newland and Joanna Quinn and people like that who I really love their work, and Tim Burton. And so you would think that I would be repeating someone's style, but I mix them around in a pot, and it comes out totally a unique style. So and I like that. I want to do stuff that's really never been seen before. That's important to me, that it's a totally unique style.
It's such a unique style that there are certain times in my life when I've been growing, I've been going through different periods, and I've loved things like Weird Al and there's Plympton out of nowhere showing up with things that I love with Weird Al. You go into the Kanye West phase of loving hip hop, and there's Bill Plympton. Like, first off, how do these connections get made?
Well, Kanye was he grew up in Chicago, as you know, and his mom would take him to see the Spike and Mike show, which played at the big theater there. I forget the name of the theater. And he had huge audiences, and he loved my animation as a young kid. And then he has this big career, and MTV hired him to didn't hire him, but asked him to premiere his new music video on their channel, TRL, I think it's called. And he asked Michel Gondry to do it. Who Michel's a big name, very big name in movies and in music videos. And what Michel Gondry delivered, Kanye did not like. He took like $500,000 and rented the top of Macy's and did this whole stop motion thing.
Wow.
And so he was freaking out because he had a week to premiere on MTV. So he called me. He said, "I remember that guy Plympton who did the the Sick and Twisted animation show. I love that stuff." And so he called me out of the blue. It was like the middle of the night. "Hello, this is Bill Plympton. It's Kanye. You do the cartoons?" I said, "Yeah, that's me." He said, I need you to make an animation video for me." So to do a music video in a week is really suicidal. But I knew it was Kanye West, and it would get a lot of circulation. So I said, yes, I will do it. He didn't give me a number, didn't say how much money I was getting paid, but I figured it wouldn't be bad just to do it for free.
Right.
And I stayed up for about a week, me and my producer, finishing this film, and we delivered it 1 hour before it was supposed to air on MTV. And it was shown all over the world. I mean, when I was in Finland doing a festival, and I turned on TV, and here's my Kanye West music video. So it did very well. And you know what? He was a great guy. He came by my studio once, and he looked over my shoulder and said, the only thing he said was, "I think I'm more handsome than that. You got to make me more good looking." And I said, "Sure, I'll do it." Mm-hmm. And we did a book together, which was nice. And he did a gallery exhibition of all my artwork from the film. So I have a lot of respect for him. He was really, he treated me very well. And I think he's an extremely talented guy. The other stuff, I can't explain that, but he's extremely talented.
That comes back to Weird Al for me, because he's one that everybody that I know that is close with him or has worked with him multiple times cannot say anything but positive about him. And any super fun Weird Al stories?
Yeah. One was I was working. I think I've done 2 or 3 for him. I can't remember. But the second one, I went out to L.A. to meet with him to talk about the project, and we went to like Hollywood and Vine. It's so real 50s Hollywood kind of diner place, diner bar. And we had a nice dinner, and we were walking out, and a homeless guy came up. "Weird Al, oh my God, Weird Al, can I have your autograph?" And he didn't have a pad, didn't have a pen. And, Weird Al is so polite. He reached down, he saw a matchbook cover in the gutter. He picked it up. He signed Weird Al on it and gave it to the guy. I mean, how many rock stars would do that? That is just so absurd that he would, care so much about this homeless guy to get an autograph.
Wow. That's amazing. And then the other big one, you have multiple times done animation for The Simpsons, which it's huge. And it's so interesting to have two animation institutions collide in a way that it fits in the rhetoric of what The Simpsons do, because they bring in different animators for that. But it serves the way that you animate as well, because they've been doing this for so long in such a unique way.
Boy, that's for sure. They're so successful. I mean, there's never been TV animation that successful. Right. It's just phenomenal. I do have a Matt Groening story if you're interested.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I went to Portland State in Oregon. That's where I grew up. And I went to Portland State College, and they had a film festival, Portland International Film Festival. And I was really getting into film and the movies then, so I went to it, and there was this guy showing industrials. Do you remember what industrial is?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they were big back then. And they were hilarious. They were like Monty Python. They were so deadpan and sort of strange. And the guy was there, and I introduced myself. I said, "I'm Bill Plympton. I love your films. They're really terrific." And he said, and I think he might have seen some of my cartoons then, so he kind of knew who I was. He said, "Well, I live right up on the hills here. Why don't you come up? I'll show you some more of them." I said, "Oh my God, that'd be wonderful." And when he drove me up there, I walk in the door, and there's this little kid laying down on the carpet drawing cartoons. And I said, "Oh, you're a cartoonist too? Wow, so that's what I'm doing, cartoons too." And that was Matt. And we became friends ever since. And we don't hang out a lot together, but usually we'll run into each other at Annecy or at the Annies or some film festival, and we have a beer and stuff. And he is really a super nice guy too. He goes to Annecy. He used to go every year. And him and David Silverman. Do you know David Silverman?
I've never met him, but yeah, I know a lot about him.
He directed a bunch of the Simpson movies. Yeah. And they would go there, and when I would go, I would do autograph my DVDs or my books or something like that. They would go, and they just autographed paper, and the line would be all the way around the block out to the lake. And I swear, him and David would sit there for 4 or 5 hours, as long as the line took, autographing this stuff. And to think he's a spoiled rich guy would be absurd. He really believes in his art. He believes in his cartoons, and he really wants to make people happy. And that's an inspiration for me, really.
Well, and he's a workhorse too. Like he is one of the busiest people out there.
Yeah, and he does the Futurama, and he produces short films, and so he does really work hard for his career.
You brought up a couple of the things that inspired you at the very beginning, but I would love to hear if there was anything that inspired your specific style, because obviously
inspired me for what?
Inspired your specific style, because
style.
It's so unique.
Yeah, well, like I say, it's really I steal from a lot of people. Art Crumb was a big influence. Ralph Bakshi, the Beatles, Milton Glaser, N.C. Wyeth, and I copy all of them all. But the style for my new film. It's called Sly. I guess I shouldn't talk about that, should I? I should.
No, we can. I was going to bring it up in just a minute, actually, for a few different reasons.
Well, that's a totally different style, and that's the style I used when I was doing illustrations for magazines and newspapers. And I go with a ballpoint pen and do draw the character, and then I go in with a colored pencil and build up the volume and the shading and all the detail work. And I never did it in animation simply because it's a lot of work. I mean, every drawing I have to draw twice, and I have to get into the detail. So it was a new thing for me, and it just seems like people really respond to this new technique. And I mean, you'll never see The Simpsons done like this, or Disney or Pixar. Right. It's really handmade and rough and sketchy. It's very impressionistic. I like to call it impressionistic because it looks like a drawing you might see in an art museum. It's very rough, and the edges are not sure, and everything's kind of crude. And I love that style, and that's why I want to be independent and not work for Disney, because they would definitely get rid of that in a second. But I don't want to say anything against Disney. I love Disney. I wouldn't be here today without Disney. As a kid, I was obsessed by Disney, and I still love their stuff. So I don't want to be negative on Disney.
Well, and there's been a handful that have left Disney. They started with Disney and they
Right.
found their way. Don Bluth is one of my favorites from when I was a
Yeah.
kid, and I mean he's probably one of the bigger names that made an imprint in Disney and could have
Yeah.
been very successful with Disney. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, arguably, he went and made his own thing, probably bigger than he would have been able to be at Disney.
Yeah. And Tim Burton was a huge success
For sure.
after starting out with Disney. And he's another one that influenced me because of his independence and his weirdness factor. He doesn't do happy films,
Right.
with kids and music songs and stuff. He does stuff on the edge, and I like that. I like doing humor that's on the edge.
Well, and a lot of your stuff is that way. It's on the, not like death necessarily, but like dark humor and black humor done in a way that is almost essentially like British humor undertones.
That's funny. Yeah, I see a little Monty Python in there, very deadpan, but very surreal, extremely surreal, and that's where I find my humor.
There is in the tune. There's one scene about I don't know, 3/4 of the way through, and there's two gentlemen just beating the hell out of each other.
Push comes to shove. Yeah,
and my wife again saw that this week for the first time, and after about 3 rounds of them going back and forth, she said, "This is still going on," and I said, "Yeah, it's perfect, isn't it?"
Yeah, that's very Monty Python. Very Monty Python. Yeah, that was, and then I released that. While I was making the tune, I started running out of money. I don't know, I wasn't getting enough commercials or something. And so I decided to release that film and the Wise Man, where the guy says, cut one loaf into two, you have three, real kind of magical stuff. And they were both very successful as short films. In fact, the one Push Comes to Shove, the two guys beating up on each other, won the prize at Cannes, the Critics' Choice, and and I wasn't there. I was shooting a live action film at the moment, and I was really tired of shooting all day, and I came home, turned on TV, and they had the broadcast of the Cannes Film Festival, and Madonna gets on. She was a judge then. And the winner is Bill Plympton. Mr. Plympton, please come up and get your prize. And I go, I want to. Why am I not in Cannes getting a prize from Donna? So that was a big mistake. But yeah, that film got me a lot of commercials too. And I think I did a game, a computer game with that idea, that concept.
There's another movie that has affected me a lot, and the first time I saw it, I think I may have just laughed so hard that I missed like 9 of the scenes and had to go back and rewatch it. I think it was 2004, the dog short film.
Guard Dog. Yeah, that was 2005 actually.
So I don't even remember where I was the first time I saw this, but this movie. The short is perfection. The attitude through it. First, where'd the idea come from for that one?
Well, that's interesting because I live here in Chelsea, New York, and there's a park about a block away that I go running in to get healthy. And I was running around the park, and I saw this dog barking at a little bird, a cute little bird. Why was the dog freaking out for the bird? And then I went inside the dog's brain and realized that the dog was afraid that the bird would attack his master and ruin his relationship, ruin his keeper, ruin his home, just ruin his life, basically. So the dog was an extremely paranoid dog, which I think some dogs are. They bark at anything. And so, well, I don't know if your dog does that, but
absolutely.
We had a dog when I was a kid that barked whenever the garbage man came or the mailman or the milkman came. He would bark him and chase it. So I thought that was a funny idea to make this dog totally paranoid of everything. And the lesson is the more paranoid he gets, the more in danger his master is. And that's how the film ends, with his master dying. And this film I thought was kind of a throwaway film. I did it real quick. It was the first film I did digitally. I didn't use a camera on it. I did scanning on computer and compositing
Right.
on computer. And we screened it in Maryland, the Maryland Film Festival, and with a bunch of other shorts, in fact. And the reaction I got, I was not ready for that. It was just people went nuts, and they were screaming and yelling, and they all ran up to me and said, do you have a stuffed doll of the dog? Do you have any mugs of the dog? Do you have any towels? I got to have the dog. So he was really big from the very beginning, and clever me, I thought, gee, maybe I should do another one. I think I've done 6 or 7 of them now, and I'll probably do one next year sometime.
Nice. Well, one thing I would love to touch on is how animation has changed since you started doing it. And you just brought up that move to digital. Were you anxious about that move when you first made that change?
I wasn't anxious because I always had people who worked for me that knew all the specifics of how to make it, all the programs and that stuff. I was so happy. Unlike Tarantino, I was so happy that this happened because as an independent, buying the film stock, getting a cameraman, getting the film processed and screened, and doing the soundtrack on optical tracks, all these things were just so expensive. In the past, I would spend about 80% of my budget on the technical side of making a film.
Wow.
Now I spend about 10% of my budget on the technical side, and then all the rest of the money can go into the artists, making the art. And that's the way it should be. It should be that the more money goes to the artists than to the technical labs and stuff like that. So I'm overjoyed by it. And then also I remember carting those big reels, remember the big reels and cans you had to take to the post office and ship them out, and that was expensive too.
Oh yeah.
So I'm really happy that you just send a digital file and you're done. I love
it's an
that.
astonishing difference. I
mean, and it really was wonderful.
The cost difference alone, especially for people inspired by work like yours, before that was a giant barrier of entry, and now you can basically do everything that you need to at home.
I know, and I love that. I can't do it myself, but my studio can facilitate my working on that.
Well, speaking of the studio, Plympton is huge. I mean, you've been doing stuff for a very long time. I'd love to hear about Slide. Could you share with everybody what Slide is?
Yeah, I think I have some artwork here. Let's see. Let me get a good one for you. This is a fun. These are some of the cowboys. Oh, sorry.
Perfect. Nice.
Some of the cowboys. And then they're going to kill this woman who wants to sing a song. Let me find her. Oh, here's the stage. So, as you know, animation's done in stages. It's upside down. Sorry. There it is.
Nice.
And so these cowboys are up there on stage, and they're going to kill the woman who she is, who's singing the song. She's the star of the film. Let's see. I want to get it.
There you go.
Can you see it? Yeah. Can you see it?
Wow.
And so the question is, does she have guts to perform with a gun to her head or not? And that's one of the questions of the film. It's real, and you can see by this. The two textures, I do pen and ink, like this.
Oh yeah, it gives it that unique depth.
Yeah, this here is the pen and ink style, and then I do go in with a color pencil and I'll do that. So it's a really unique style that you'll never see anybody else do because no one's lucky enough to do that.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of stuff with the animation that you've kind of been like the harbinger for trying new things.
Yeah. No, Slide was influenced by my growing up in Oregon. We lived in the woods, and there was a lot of lumber mills around there, because there's a lot of forestry going on. And every day these logging trucks would go by our house in the country. And I just thought that would be a fun location to do a Western. I wanted to do a Western that had Hank Williams music, because something about Hank Williams music and animation just fits together. It's really fun. And so I can't afford the Hank Williams music, obviously, but my writers, Marie McKellar and Hank Bones, they can mimic that sound, right. Old timey country Western music, and that's what I wanted to do.
Well, and you've been doing that for years. The tune does that quite a few times.
That's right, and the tune, I have so many favorite parts on that. I love the blues. No Nose Blues is one of my favorites. The surfing song. I remember we were recording the surfing song. It's called Dance All Day, and it was going so well. We had the surfing guitar and everything, and we realized that it was too short. And so Maureen was there to sing. She was singing, and I said, Maureen, we need another verse. And so she sat down in 5 minutes and wrote another verse, and it was funnier than any of the others. I don't know how she does that. She really is a genius. So she gets a lot of credit for this film. She did a lot of the sound. She did a lot of the voices, a lot of the music, and she was really an important part of the making of this film.
Well, and she is in the hour-long interview with Dennis Bartok from Death Crocodile on this. Highly recommend watching that. The conversation is great between the four of you.
Thank you.
Death Crocodile, they're close friends of mine, and I got to hear, how is it working with them? Are they good people?
Very nice. We really enjoy it. We're very excited about it. I do have other films that we may also release on DVD. So they're definitely somebody we want to keep in touch with in the future.
And a lot of that you've been doing throughout the years. Has the physical media side of Plympton's been important to you that entire time? Because it seems like it really is. And
what media?
The physical media, being able to release the films and something that people can have at home and be able to watch it.
I have a big library of DVDs. I love DVDs. They're so great. And then you have all the extras, the documentaries, the interviews, the voiceovers, that kind of stuff. So for me, it's really an important part of my releasing, getting the films out there.
Do you remember any of your favorite titles with some great extras on it, like those interviews and documentaries?
Yeah, I like some of the foreign ones. Those are really cool. Aardman does great animation. I love their stuff. The Tim Burton films, Nightmare Before Christmas. I mean, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So I love that stuff. Marv Newland, one of the great animators. He did Bambi Meets Godzilla, if you ever saw that. And to me, that is the perfect animated film because I think there's maybe 12 drawings in the whole film. And he spent $500 to make it. He did it in a weekend, and it's probably one of the most popular animated films ever made. And it's probably made him over $100,000. And I went, oh my God, I wish I could do that. Why can't I do that? So Marv is a good buddy of mine, and I use his films as examples. I mean, he made other great films too, not just Bambi Meets Godzilla. So he's one of my influences.
I would also love to hear some thoughts from you on modern animation, because obviously with such a unique, very, very personal, old school, tangible design style that you have, how do you feel about the polish that we're seeing in animation today?
Well, I like it. If the story's good, I like it. Chris Miller, who did a lot of the Lego movies, used to work for me. He worked for me one summer. And he was a college kid. I think he was a sophomore or something like that. And I just thought he was a guy who liked animation, but apparently he's really funny, really smart, very funny. I wish I could work with him at some point, but that'll never happen. He's up in the stratosphere here.
He's grown a little bit.
Yeah. He's big time now.
But going back to the earliest days, how difficult was it for you to start getting your work into publications? Because I think the hard part nowadays for people inspired by stuff like yours, a lot of those publications just don't exist anymore. It's super difficult to compete.
Like what publications are you talking about?
Anything like magazines or newspapers or any of that. It's not even an outlet anymore.
Yeah, a lot of my Illustrator friends are having a tough time, and I feel bad for them because their work is brilliant. I mean, it's really gorgeous stuff. So yeah, when I was doing it in the 70s and 80s, illustration was big time. You know, you can make a lot of money. Now it's very difficult. So I'm glad I moved into animation. Quite frankly, that was my initial goal, was to be an animator. It wasn't to be an illustrator. The only reason I became an animator was because or an illustrator rather, was because the animation business was dying. It was really, it was Hanna-Barbera, and I hated Hanna-Barbera. I didn't think that was animation. That was the only place to get a job. There was no really good openings for that. So I said, well, I'll be an illustrator and maybe something will come along. And then in 1987, I was contacted by a client of mine. I'd done a brochure with her, and she said, we have this song by Jules Pfeiffer, and we want to make a music video out of it. And I said, yeah, that's great, but I don't know how to do animation. And they said, well, we'll get someone to teach you. Her name was Connie D'Antonio, and she walked me through every step of making the film. And that was my school. That was my animation school. And that film was called Boomtown. And it was kind of a semi-hit. It got distribution all across America and got some really good reviews. So that's when I said, okay, now I know how to do it. I'm going to make my own film. And that was Your Face, which changed everything.
And Your Face is so... There's something so iconic about it looking back now. It's so interesting that caught, like, it was everywhere, it seemed like, for a little bit.
Yeah, it was. And even today, people are making sort of variations on it. You know, they would use their face and do digital weirdness to their face and sing that same song. And Homer Simpson sang it too. He did a Your Face cameo. So yeah, that stupid 3-minute film is extremely successful.
Looking back on when you were first getting started, what is that first moment that you felt like, wow, I'm making it?
That's a good question, because I distinctly remember that. I'd finished Your Face. For me, it was just an exercise. It really wasn't supposed to be a film. It was just see how many ways I could distort the human head. And someone told me I should enter it in the CIFA Awards, which is an organization of animators around the world. There's different chapters. So I entered it in a CIFA. I went there, and it was a room of about 40 people, something like that. And I was very nervous because it was a stupid film. There was no plot, no editing, one character, crudely drawn, who sings a very bad song. And who's going to want to watch that? And after about 4 seconds, the room was convulsed in laughter. It was just crazy. I'd never heard so many people laugh at one of my drawings before. And that's when I realized that this was what I was born to do. And it just was like a drug. I was floating on air, hearing this laughter.
Yeah.
I just couldn't. It was unreal. It was totally unreality. Like, am I in a fantasy right now? You know, this is too weird. And then afterwards, they all came by and said, "Are you Bill Plympton? Did you make that film?" Because nobody knew who I was.
Of course.
Said, yeah, that was me. And they said, "Well, let's go out and have a drink and talk animation." And I said, "Yeah, I feel like I'm home now. This is where I should have been, 20 years earlier."
That's It's so lovely to think about too that there's just this supportive community for something like that.
Yes, yes. It's not so well organized now. It's the SIFA in New York is sort of dissipated. They don't have money or anything, but back then it was really a strong organization.
One thing that I've tried to really advocate for, especially over the last couple of years, is I kind of touched on it earlier too, but we don't see a lot of just plain respect given to shorts. And as somebody that your life has been, a lot of it has been shorts.
Yeah.
Is there something in 2024 that you think as a society we should be doing to support shorts better?
Well, I don't know. You know, they used to have those tourney of animation, and the Spike and Mike used to play art theaters all around the country, and those are gone now. We have one small show of shows that does that, but their choices are a little more artsy fartsy. I don't think they're very commercial.
Right.
But it's got to be on the internet. I mean, that's where people like Pez make it big, and you know, some of the other independent filmmakers do very well on the internet. I show my films on the internet. I don't get a lot of money, but they do get a lot of audience.
Right.
So I think that's the future right there. Patrick Smith does very well on the internet. So I think that's the only thing I can think of. And I'm not a real tech guy. I don't really know the programs and the channels and everything. But that's I still play on TV, especially in Europe. I'm very popular in Europe. I still play TV there, and in Asia, you know, Japan and China and Korea, I do well there. So I hope that it builds up.
The fan base is definitely a strong one, and I think Slide, wasn't there a Kickstarter campaign to help raise some funds for it? Was that difficult to do?
No, I've done it before. We made about 80,000 on it, which is a good start. That lasts about half a year.
Yeah.
Slide has taken about 7 years to make, unfortunately, but that's because of COVID. I had to stop and do a lot of commercial jobs to pay for the bills. So, but you know, it's something I don't do for the money, as you probably understand, at seeing my work.
Unfortunately, yeah.
But the pleasure is seeing the audience enjoy it and drawing all day long. I get up at sometimes 6 a.m, go right to my drawing board and draw until 10. Then I come into my studio and draw here all day, and then I go home and draw till 8. So for me, drawing is a addiction. Animation drawing is an addiction, and it's a happy addiction. I'm not complaining. So that's my life.
That's beautiful. One thing I really wanted to end this on too is you've always done well to support other artists. You've always done well to lift up other people, and I'd really love to hear like just some quick fire answers, like the last piece of animation or illustration that excited you. That's somebody else that's maybe new in the industry. Yeah.
Well, like I say, Joanna Quinn really does beautiful work. She's an inspiration. She's a British animator, and you should, the people should look her up. She's really brilliant. Of course, Marv Newland, I talked about him before. There's you know, a lot of young people doing animation now that is really exciting, and so I'm kind of old school, old style stuff, but people still like it, so I'm happy about that.
Is there a piece of your work that you feel like is underrated? You're surprised more people didn't attach to it?
Well, yeah, the film Hair High. I don't know if you ever saw it. Anyway, I was complaining to Martha Plympton, who's a relative of mine, in a bar. She used to live in New York. We hung out. And I said, for some reason, my films just don't get distribution. You know, they're independent. They're not for kids, and so I just can't get distribution. And she said, maybe you should have some movie stars in there. So I said, yeah, that'd be great, but I can't afford, these movie stars. Right. And so she said, don't worry, I will get them. Oh, and wow. She, bless her heart, she was very connected. She got David Carradine, Keith Carradine, a lot of big name, Sarah Silverman, Beverly D'Angelo, really top-notch people. And I went out to L.A. and recorded them, and I actually had money then. I think I did a big program for Cartoon Network, and so I did have money to pay them, and put it together, and it just flopped. And I think it's one of my best films, Hair High. It's really great music, great humor, great style, a real classical sort of Donald Bluth style. And it just really flopped. And I think that's one of those films, like The Tune, that will be rediscovered. And people say, geez, I really liked it. How come I couldn't see it? How come I wasn't in the movie theaters? And so that's the one disappointment I had.
Looking back on everything, and this will be the last thing I'll ask, so I'll give you your time back. What are you most proud of? What piece of work is the one that you go, man, I made that, and I'm so ecstatic that's mine?
Yeah. Well, all my work, I feel, I really respect and feel happy that I did it. I did do 3 live action films, and those were complete flops, especially Jay Lyle. And I thought that was a cool film. It's sort of David Lynch kind of. Yeah. David Lynch meets Monty Python kind of film. And maybe it was 2 David Lynch. I don't know. But then Guns on the Clackamas, which is live action, I thought that was really a funny film. I was surprised that one didn't get picked up. And then I did a film called Hitler's Folly. And it was a very low budget digital film. I think it cost about $10,000. Wow. And that one, we couldn't really sell it because there was a lot of Mickey Mouse in there. Although now Mickey Mouse he's public domain, so maybe I could release it now. I never thought of that. Anyway, that's a pretty wacky film where, while Hitler wanted to be an artist. He wanted to be a painter, and he went to art school. He wanted to go to art school, couldn't get in. What would happen if, when he went to art school, he got turned on to animation and became an animator and wanted to make the greatest animated film of all time? And Eva Braun was the one who was mastering all the invasions and the military movements and things like that. And Hitler just wanted to make cartoons and make people laugh. I thought that was a really absurd thing, but it gets a few hits online. But maybe now that Mickey Mouse is public domain, maybe I can release it theatrically.
Well, ideas like that are why I've always been attached to your work and loved it. I've been a big fan for years, and everybody needs to go out and pick up this brand new edition of The Tune. Yes. It is an astonishing release, and Bill, I just want to say thank you so much for your time. It's a dream come true to be able to speak to you.
Great. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Have a good day. Sir. Maybe I'll be in Kansas City soon.
Yeah, well, I'll try to make that contact for you.
Get in the barbecue.
Thank you for listening to the Disconnected Podcast. There's one big thing that you could do to help the show, and that is to leave a rating and review on the podcast service of your choice. Thank you.